I talk a lot about the ego and the higher self, and people that have been following me for a really long time, I'm starting to get feedback from them saying, I get it now. It does take a while when when something just clicks and then you go, oh, now I can see it so clearly, but you just couldn't see it that way before. A lot of a misconception with the word ego is thinking that someone has a big ego, as in they're showing off and they love the attention. That kind of that a label has been put around the word ego. So that's the only way you can see it, is thinking ego means I'm a show off. I like to, walk into a crowd and be noticed by everybody. It's not, that's not the meaning. An ego part of you is the mind part of you that is the human part of you. And we all have that ego. Apparently, like if you listen to psychology and that, apparently the ego originally is part of us because it was there for protection. So when we were on this earth and there were animals that ate humans, there was more animals than humans, the ego creates fear, and that fear is to trigger something in you to run, run or fight. So it was there always to protect us. So it's also there to have that fear that you don't step out into oncoming traffic because that's not the right thing to do. It's the thinking part of the brain. It's the human part, and it's there and designed to help us function from day to day. So it's needed. It's not like you have to totally get rid of the ego, because we do need the ego. But if you've got a problem and you're thinking from your ego self, it'll come from fears, and it'll come from, how can I protect myself in this situation? So let's say somebody really hurt you. You may have been in love with them and they just ghosted you, or they had an affair with somebody else, or they just told you they didn't love you anymore. Whatever the situation, and it hurt. Your heart was really hurting. Your ego will try to make you feel better. So the ego will come up with thoughts in the mind to try to make you feel better, like they are at fault. They're the ones that did wrong to you. You come like a victim, like I'm the victim here. They're the ones that did everything wrong. So that you'll see it from a view that will make you feel better, or you'll try to make yourself feel better. And you'll keep going. You can come up with 100 different stories in your mind, and they can change. Sometimes you'll be a victim, and other times you might see yourself as not good enough. I'm not deserving enough, and they're better than me. The reason they didn't hang around is because they're better than me. All these different stories that get conjured up in the mind are from the ego part of the mind, the human part of the mind, the programming part of the mind, the part that wants to make you feel better. But if you meditate, when you meditate, you connect directly to source, and you connect to your higher self, and your higher self doesn't have the ego there. So your higher self will see the same situation from a viewpoint of, okay, I can see that the other person was having their own issues with loving themselves and they couldn't love me. The higher self will see it like, wow, look what I learned about myself through that experience. I have learned what my strengths are. I have learned that I can survive through emotions. I am strong enough that I don't need people like that in my life anymore. I don't have to feel the guilt anymore. I can actually see love in that other person. Even though they have hurt me, I can still see and feel love for them, even though that they have emotional problems. So the higher self will always see things from a really, really high level, and the ego self will see it from a level that affects your emotions. Because I can have people that have done me wrong, and really done me wrong, and I've probably done wrong to other people too. You've always got to be accountable for yourself. But I can wish them well. I can look at another person and wish them well, because I prefer to see things through the higher self than my ego self. So, someone may call themselves very, very spiritual and say that they're a very spiritual being, but yet if they are still projecting hate or anger towards another human being, they are still seeing the whole situation only through their ego, not through their higher self. And that's where the healing comes in. The healing comes in by connecting your ego self back to your higher self. Society is heading in a direction where we just live our lives purely ego. The whole connection to the higher self has been lost, and that's why you hear a lot of people talking about a great awakening or a great reset or whatever, like people are consciously aware. What it is we are just being reminded of that higher self that is in every single one of us. It's the part of us that was here, the soul that came into the body at birth, and it'll leave the body at death, and it is constant, it's eternal. And we have forgotten that connection. And so everything that happens around people at the moment is bringing that connection back. That's why so many people are feeling lost, because they're not lost in knowing what to do, and they're not lost in knowing what steps to take next. They're just lost because they're trying to find themselves back to their higher self. That's what they're looking for. So I hope that explains it a bit better, and drop a comment below if something you just don't understand about the ego and the higher self.